Chris Roper, and I'm here today to talk about Rock Band and the main World Tour mode for the game, which is your basic progression thing, and which works way differently than it had in either Guitar Hero 1 or 2, and a lot of people haven't heard about it yet. The first thing you do when you start the World Tour is you need to go create a band. You can give them a band name, you can create a logo for the band, which is a pretty cool layer system. You can use shapes and stuff, kind of like you could in Forza. You can give them a motto. Depending on where you're playing, you might have your logo in the background or whatever, signs with your name on it, which is pretty cool. And then you need to go create all your band members, of course. And for each member, you can pick their name, you give them their height and weight. You pick through a limited number of heads. There's about half a dozen or so different heads you can choose from. And you give them a hairstyle, and you give them their style, be it punk, metal, rock, whatever. And that's kind of like how they'll, rock out on stage. And then once you've got your guy created, you can go into the rock shop and go through a bunch of different clothing options. You have clothes that are situated for metal, goth, punk, things like that, styles of clothing. You can change shirts, pants, shoes, accessories, all kinds of stuff. Most of the clothing here is completely outrageous. You can do things from, like the drummer that I made is wearing all like skeleton emblazoned, like a jumpsuit and whatnot, kind of like what you see in the Karate Kid. But then you can create people that look like they're straight out of Sgt. Pepper or The Who or whatever have you. There's some pretty crazy stuff in there. You could probably recreate GWAR if you wanted to. Once your band's set up, you jump into the World Tour, and you begin by playing small clubs. Basically, when you first start, you don't have any fans, and you don't have any basically notoriety, which in this case is dictated by how many stars that you've earned. Stars count for both your overall progression in the game and on a per-city basis. So each city has 3 venues you can play, and when you first enter the city, you can usually only play the smallest club. And in order to get to the bigger clubs, or stadiums as it were, you need to have played the smaller clubs and earn a certain number of stars. And some clubs also require overall stars, so you might need 10 stars in Chicago to play some of the bigger stadiums, but you also might need 100 stars overall to prove that you're big in the U.S. and you're big in Chicago, basically. That's how that works. And when you first go into a city, for each of the clubs, you'll have a certain number of set lists you can play. These set lists include individual songs. You can go in and play just one song and earn some fans that way. Or you can play a different number of set lists. Some of them are like a 2-song set list, or they're mystery set lists. You don't know when you're going to play. You can create your own set list where you can pick any of the songs that you've earned up to that point, and then basically try to earn fans that way. And there also are some pretty cool special event type things where, for instance, one of them is to, if you pass it and you get like an average of 4 stars on all the songs, you'll earn a tour bus. And so at the beginning, you might only be able to play in a couple cities, and when you earn the tour bus, it opens up a lot more cities in the U.S. Or there's another event that's a Battle of the Bands, and if you win that, you'll basically win a group of roadies, and those guys will then allow you to tour stadiums in bigger areas, because prior to that, you're only playing small clubs where I guess you were lugging around your equipment yourself. So it's all a pretty cool setup. And another thing is that songs are unlocked to you basically per each city, and some cities have special events where you'll have a set list of local bands. So for instance, when we played Seattle, we had already played Soundgarden beforehand, but in the local band setup for Seattle, that gave us Soundgarden, and then a song from, and then In Bloom from Nirvana, and then Learning to Fly by the Foo Fighters. And then on the similar vein, where we were in Chicago, that was the first time that we got to play the Smashing Pumpkins' Cherub Rock. So it's all pretty cool. It's all sort of city-based. Of course, not all the bands really apply to the city, because then you wouldn't be able to get certain bands put in certain places, but a lot of them are city-centric, and that works out pretty well. We haven't yet gotten to the point where we're traveling overseas in the game, so we don't know. We're assuming you have to get a plane of some sort, and you'll get bands once you travel overseas, like The Who and stuff like that, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. So going back to the fans are, along with the stars, are a big requirement for where you can play. You can't play stadiums until you have a fan base of 50, 60, 70, 80,000 fans to fill the place. And so one pretty cool thing is that some shows will give you options for certain events, like you might play a show that's a charity event, to where if you choose to play it for charity, you won't earn any money for the show, so you won't get any money to buy new equipment or clothes or whatever, but you'll earn double the fans that you would normally get. If you, of course, fail the song, you don't get anything, which kind of sucks for you. But as the case may be, if you fail any song, you quit out of a song, you'll always lose fans. So when you go into a new city and you see the thing that says it's a mystery set list, and you don't know what songs are going to be in there, if they're not practiced and you fail the set list, you're going to lose some of your fans, which is a pretty big deal. So it's not the sort of retry and retry with no penalty, this time around you'll actually lose fans, and that hinders where you can play, and that kind of screws up. You could actually go backwards and not be able to play stadiums anymore, that sort of thing. So your band can kind of rise and fall depending on how you're doing. Now, one thing that we've noticed is that since you're playing a lot of set lists, and one side effect is that you're going to play the same songs over and over again. So while you might play a set list with a new song in there, you'll probably also have to play a repeat. So once you've mastered a song, like towards the end of the game, we can imagine if you're playing songs still from the beginning, you're going to be killing through them, and it's going to may kind of get a little bit tiring. And although some songs you can choose to play singularly, some of the set lists require that you play 3 or 4 songs, and so you'll have to go through ones that you've played before again. The game was kind of built for the multiplayer aspect, and so you're going to have more fun when your people are around, you're rocking out with them than just by yourself. So that, in a nutshell, is basically how the World Tour works. So far, from what we've seen, it's a pretty cool progression where your band gets better over time, and you get that sort of rise and fall feel. And you kind of, there's enough elements in there that it actually feels like your band is expanding, as opposed to you're just going at a checklist of songs that are getting harder. This actually gives you bigger stadiums to play, more fans at your show, and yeah, it's all a pretty cool experience, and you actually feel that your band is evolving and getting bigger and better. And so it is a really cool setup, and we're glad that Harmonix took a risk on it, and hopefully it'll pay off in the end.